Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week with some new music. This one being from ARCHSPIRE, which they actually released this track back in December, but I'm just now finally getting around to it. Yeah, I was trying to figure out why I didn't check it out in December because I'm pretty sure I knew about it, but I took 2 weeks off in December and I tried to highlight smaller artists that month too. And this month we've also done mostly smaller artists on Fridays. We're going to check out some ARCHSPIRE though because, you know, Bleed the Future was one of my favorite albums of 2021, something like that, a few years back. And yeah. I'm always down for more of this group. So they got a new one out. This track's called Carrion Ladder. The album called Too Fast to Die comes out in April something or another. It's in my calendar. I don't need to remember the date. Software will do that for me. Let's dive into this and see what ARCHSPIRE is bringing to the table today. This reminds me of Joan Corp's Aviator, a darkly neoclassical midpoint guitar focus. I think the chord progression is actually really similar to that moment as well. Is that 8 Mile?
the fuck happened, dude? Where the fuck is...
Speaking of Drone Corps
Hey,
Aviator,
Slim.
isn't that the
Time to get out
same
of here.
actor for the janitor in that
Man,
video
did I
too?
kill it?
I'm the janitor. I don't know. Get the fuck out.
Did I fucking blow that bouncer?
What in the world? All right, I'm gonna y'all come here because I don't mince words, man. I'm not excited about this. Okay, so before we get into some analysis on this, a little bit of my relationship with this band. They were one of the first really extreme bands that connected with me that I found through this channel. I actually don't remember how I discovered ARCHSPIRE. It was probably through this channel though. There's no way I would have found them on my own, that's for sure. And what I really enjoyed about the music is the neoclassical harmonic devices mixed with the technical performance. And a lot of it is the melodic qualities while also not neglecting the vocal side of things. As we saw right at the beginning of this track, the vocalist is sick. Just absolutely phenomenal enunciation and technical speed. The way that the vocalist can switch up their flows almost makes it feel like growled rapping more so than general metallic growling. It's the harmonic qualities, the chord theory, the technical elements, the mastery on display, and the general melodic passages in their music that pulled me into this side of metal, because there's probably a large amount of you listening to this and they're like, did Bryan say he liked this? This is really heavy. This is definitely beyond where I typically like to listen to metal. This is a very extreme track. But the thing is that I kind of deal with their more extreme sides, and maybe I've even become a bit more comfortable with extreme metal in general because there's always a cool melodic thing around the corner. That wasn't really true with this track. This was a hyper focused on the technical aggression. This is a hyper focus on the extreme metal that they kind of balance out in previous albums. Now, granted, some of the tracks are moving into this realm, and I'm really hoping that this album, this is going to be the peak. And it's going to be where they exist on like one or two tracks, and everything else is going to be less extreme than this. But this is pretty much all the things that I typically push through to get to the stuff I enjoy, put in one song without much of what I enjoy in it. And I can't really say I enjoyed the track. I think if you're a Tech Death fan, this was probably phenomenal because I still appreciate the musicianship that went into this song. But it just, I'm not a metalhead. And so I didn't really find much of what I enjoy in ARCHSPIRE present in this track. We did have two very cool neoclassical riffs in here, one in a metallic part and one kind of bringing the energy down towards the end of the track. And I do like the focus on the vocals. I mean, we had a full section at the beginning of the vocalists just getting to show off their enunciation and speed. That's awesome. I love that. But the rest of the track was really heavy for me, and there's quite a few sections in here that are more texture-based breakdowns with noisy panic chords going off every once in a while. It's just not my cup of tea, unfortunately. So It is ARCHSPIRE though. I know they're going to do some cool stuff on the album, but the album is also called Too Fast to Die, and this is the fastest track I've heard from them. And I wonder if this isn't setting the tone for what that album will be. Maybe this is their opportunity to make their peak album. The one everyone points to and says, this is the one they went all out on. Because, I mean, this was a fast song. And I think that's where we should start the discussion as we move from my subjective take into something a bit more objective. I don't know what the technical beats per minute on this are. I think if we broke it down, it's probably not as fast as you're thinking it is, but they're consistently playing 16th and 32nd notes throughout this, which puts a lot of notes in a short amount of time and implies speed. There's a lot of things happening constantly. Sometimes I think this is fine. There are some riffs in here that I thought were pretty slick, and the speed really brought a virtuosic element to it that, yeah, dude, the spectacle on this track is phenomenal. Top tier spectacle playing. I don't know if I'd enjoy an ARCHSPIRE concert. The music, I think, is one thing. The concert would really take it to another level, but I think I would also just want to experience this. I went and saw Dragon Force in concert 2 decades ago, maybe. It was a long time ago. I went by myself. No one wanted to go see them. They were opening for Kill Switch, and I didn't even stay for Kill Switch Engage. I went just to see Dragon Force, and honestly, it wasn't a fantastic performance. They were all drunk, and the vocalist just wasn't killing it that night. But to physically see in person the guitarists playing at the speed and somehow, despite being drunk, still being fairly accurate, it's something I'll never forget. Not one of my favorite concerts, but an unforgettable one regardless, because there's just something about seeing feats of skill like that live. And I think as much as I would get bodied in the mosh pit of this, I would love to be somewhere near the front, closer to the stage, and just watching the drummer, watching the guitarists and the bassists and playing at the speed. It is remarkable. But it's also a bit unintelligible. The first riff really leans into this. I don't know if you could make out any of those notes, but I couldn't. Much like when an object moves at such a speed that it becomes a blur and the fine details are missing. You just kind of get general shapes, silhouettes, and maybe smashing together of colors. This is moving so fast, I can't even hear individual notes. Sounds are blurring together. Pitches are becoming this smorgasbord of mutated, collected forms of sound rather than distinct tones. It is a flurry of notes in which I'm not getting much information out of. Much like taking a bunch of crayons in your fists and just making a circle, you can kind of sometimes see individual color strokes, but most of it's just going to be this conglomeration of chaos. And that's what a lot of the opening of this sounded like to me. Now, as we get through the song, we kind of slow things down a little bit and the riffs become a bit more discernible. But I think right here at the start, I was wondering to myself, this is bonkers. Why? And I really think the point is because they can. But I think personally I would get more enjoyment slowing it down to maybe 80% speed just so I can actually hear what's being played. So as a form of entertainment, I am very entertained here. As a form of artistry, again, entertained by the skill, but I couldn't engage with the music. It was too fast. I do think there is a limit to the human ear, and ARCHSPIRE has crossed that limit, which is incredibly impressive, but I'm not finding much enjoyment in the music that way. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I like to come at their music from the perspective of composition. I like the rhythmic technicality. I like the harmonic technicality. I like the melodic technicality. And I don't really get to hear it. I appreciate the concept of it. I can tell it's too fast to hear, and that's really interesting. But I don't get to hear the notes. And I'm a bit disappointed by that. Because there's probably some really cool things happening in those opening riffs. And like I said, it's almost too fast to a detriment. The majority of the rest of this track, though, is overwhelming weight. We do slow down the notes eventually. We reach a point where I can hear the riffs and hear the specific notes, kind of follow melodies and stuff, but chordally, I'm not hearing too much that deviates too far outside of the realm of death metal. We do have a couple of neoclassical moments, but again, it's a couple and they're short-lived. One of them, as I mentioned, the lighter one, also feels like Drone Corps Aviator's midpoint. I think the chord progression, or at least the theory behind the chord progression, what kind of chordal intervals we're looking at and chordal modes, is very similar. And it also has this moody, dangerous atmosphere to it, just like that one did. It reminded me so much of that track, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's always cool when there's callbacks and stuff like that, but it's also a bit, I suppose for me personally, a little disappointing that the one time I got something that I actually like from this group in this track, and it's what I've enjoyed in a different song, and I could go listen to that song and get that along with other really cool ideas in that one. Drone Corps Aviator is just a terrific song. If you get a chance to check that one out, go for it. The music video, lots of practical special effects in like the gore and violence area. If you can't handle that, just check the song out. You're not missing anything with the music video. But yeah, dude, the riffs in that one are sick. The flow, the rhythmic shifts, all of it, dude. That is a fantastic track. And you know, maybe this one will grow on me too, now that I'm thinking about it. I don't think Drone Corps Aviator hit me really strongly the first time I heard it. The slow parts, for sure. I mean, it's just neoclassical on electric guitar. Not really too metallic in those moments. But the rest of the track might have still been a bit aggressive, especially the opening riff on that one. You can't really be ready for ARCHSPIRE songs to start. In the middle of an album, yeah, you're already adjusted to it, but they're so fast. You can't just start it out of the blue and be like, all right, I'm ready for this. You kind of got to warm up into it. I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, yeah. So some cool ideas within this, but a lot of it is also very metallic, death metal-y, and texture work, which I think is cool. There's some nice grooves in here in the middle and the end of the track. But they're grooves of just like pretty straightforward riffage, pretty straightforward death metal chords. And I get it, dude. When you're playing at like 15 to kick the song off, sometimes it's nice to come down to like an 8 or 9 and just kind of relax a little bit, play something a bit more iterative, not try to be the fastest band in the world. But you know, like I mentioned in many reactions, I'm not a breakdown kind of guy. So having breakdowns in here against music that's just too fast for my ears, again, I think I'm just gonna wrap this up. Let me hit some lyrics on this one. I feel like I'm just regurgitating the same things, and that this is incredibly impressive, but not for me, not for me to enjoy. And I feel like a broken record at this point. So lyrics. There's a metaphor here that I'm missing. On the surface, I get this general idea of descent, of destroying those around us in a downward spiral, all for the purpose of self-preservation. There is also themes of cannibalism. There's a lot of meat-based lyrics in here. Sometimes that meat is humans. But there's also this idea of a ladder falling. Now, granted, it's the Carrion Ladder, and I've tried to wrap my mind around that metaphor. And I'm a bit lost on that too. This is also incredibly dense. There are 8, 9 stanzas, each of them with about 10 lines each on average. The lines are lengthy and there's not a lot of repetition on here either, which is all par for the course for ARCHSPIRE too. Not just is the vocalist a phenomenal growl rapper, but their vocabulary and way with words is also something to be envied. But I'm not entirely... I don't know what all this is about, other than a general idea of, like I said, downward spiral, hurting those around you. It's possibly about how negative cycles or maybe even addiction of some sort ends up destroying the ones closest to you. But that's really more of like a gut feeling based off of 20 to 30 disparate lines rather than a solid understanding of what all of this is supposed to be talking about. I do want to look at the first stanza though. This was within the first 10 seconds of the song, during the moment when there wasn't really much in terms of guitars and drums. It's mostly all vocals. All of this was within like 10 seconds, so I'm going to slow it down. It's going to take more than 10 seconds, I think. Waiting on the platform in the living elevator, deadpanning, head pounding, wading into a plank without footing, dropping while the pace of the blade is increasing, unlocking a pounding centrifugal, feeling, turning, whipping, keeping me bolted while falling downward on a liquid locomotive tunneling into the ground. That is a tongue twister. And he growled it in an incredibly short amount of time. It blows my mind. It really does. We do have a general cadence to it. There's a nice soft rhyme scheme. But I don't necessarily know what it means. We do have a platform in a living elevator. So we have concepts of vertical movement, but also flesh presence. And this is what I was talking about mostly. There's a lot of allusions to food, meat, flesh, and also descent, vertical movements in general. Talks about falling downward on a liquid locomotive tunneling into the ground. Here we are. Already in our downward spiral, our descent right from the start. This next stanza is fairly lengthy. It says, I get up, spitting blood, hacking up my lung and liver, blocking out internal pain, so I can see her through a pane of liquid glass. Every time I wait in line to board the ladder, I get sicker. On the conveyor of mass contagion, I inhale a constant deadly wind of toxic human expulsion amid famine, plague, and dysentery, yet I never leave, the crippling curling up in line. Band together in defense against the men whose hunger unabated escalated to cannibalism. So we have somebody who is in an area that is not great. Talks about mass contagion and toxic human expulsion. This is just generally painting an environment that is unhealthy and purposefully made unhealthy by those in power. It then mentions that those who are most vulnerable end up curling in line and banding together against the men whose hunger escalates into cannibalism. So we have a ruling class and a vulnerable class, and the ruling class has no problem taking advantage of the vulnerable because it gives them more power, all done through the lens of hunger. Coming to the idea of cannibalism, which, as I mentioned, meat, it's pretty consistent here. Now, from this point, though, I lose the thread entirely. We have a her that our narrator is concerned about. It says, tainted meat will take them out, and if I choose to fight, I will never see her. Looking back is death. Here one must give up their mind and moral binding. This idea of looking back is death is interesting because in a couple of lines we will see that looking up is death, and by the end of the track we will also see that looking down is death. It presents the idea that the only way to progress in this environment is forward. You have to get through it, and in this case moving forward seems to imply a constant loss of your moral compass. You must continue to become more monstrous than human. We have a constant repeating of this concept of a falling carrion ladder coming down from above. But I don't understand what that is. It says, if I were taken by the limb before you could visit me, could you bear the line? Would you even care to stay alive alone, save for the image of me tearing up our only son? Does not seem like a good idea there. It doesn't seem like a good image. Doesn't seem like this person would want to support you in this case. But it does make me wonder if the her and the she that is referred to constantly in third person on this track is the mother of our narrator's child here, if that's their relationship. But by the end of it, we see that they've given up all of their moral compass, all of their morals in general. It says, Goliath meat will let me live, and if I stay down here, I will never eat it. Sparing her is death. One must give up their mind and moral binding. Looking back is death. Looking down is death. I rip her from the Carrion Ladder. I don't know, dude. I feel like I'm right on the cusp of getting this, but there's so many lines that go right over my head. And once you miss one or two of the connective metaphors, the thread unwinds rapidly and it becomes impossible to see what the picture is. And I don't know how we got to thread to pictures, but I hope my disjointed metaphor made sense to somebody. Yeah, I'm excited for the album. I'm going to leave it in my calendar. April, when it comes out, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to try to stay away from more singles. It's like a trailer, man. I don't want it ruined. I want to dive into the album with my opinion untainted as possible. But you know, it's been years. I wanted some new ARCHSPIRE. I got tempted, dude. I wanted to taste the apple. Here we are. Checked out their latest single, and it wasn't really for me. I wasn't the audience of this one. But I'm still excited. This hasn't really upset me too much. It has shown me that these guys can be faster, which is bonkers. But these are just my thoughts. ARCHSPIRE's Carrion Ladder, what did you think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Let me know. Put all of that and anything else you'd like to add into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, is a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.